Good evening, members, sponsors, and friends. I'd like to welcome you to our second virtual meeting. We move forward and are able to have live meetings soon, we hope. We will continue to have both types of meeting formats going forward for the foreseeable future. With all the activities that are taking place this year because of the elections, we are working extra hard to ensure that we keep you informed about all of the issues, events, in addition to our newsletter, email blasts. We always have our website, www.republicanclub@heritageranch.com, available for announcements, interesting articles, and events. Speaking of events, here's a reminder about our SB8 convention on June 20th at South Fork Ranch. You must attend this convention to be a delegate or an alternate to the state convention. The state convention dates are July 13th through 20th in Houston this year. The Texas Republican State Convention is the largest of its type in the country. And today, I'd like Joan Van Fleet to introduce our speaker, Dr. Robert Armstrong, our National Republican Committeeman from Texas, to compare the differences between the Republican and Democratic platforms. Joan?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second virtual meeting. Our speaker tonight has been greatly involved in the Republican Party and has also been in the front line of COVID-19. Dr. Robin Armstrong was elected as the National Committee Chairman, as the National Committeeman from Texas in June 2012. That means that he sits on the Republican National Committee. He is a politician and a physician who served as vice chairman of the Republican Party of Texas from 2006 to 2010. Dr. Armstrong has a BS degree in microbiology from Texas A&M University and an MD from the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. He did his residency in internal medicine and is on the staff of the Mainland Medical Center in Texas City, Texas. Dr. Armstrong has been active in both politics and his community. He's traveled on missionary journeys to Africa and Nicaragua and worked in the inner city and youth ministries in addition to a men's Bible study group. His activities in grassroots Republican politics include serving as city chair, an election judge, a precinct chair, a poll watcher, a convention delegate, a senatorial district convention chairman, and the state Republican Executive Committee for Texas Senate District 11, and most recently, the vice chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Dr. Armstrong and his wife, Martha, who is also a physician, have 4 sons, Daniel, Gabriel, Joshua, and Noah. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Robin Armstrong.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for that very kind introduction. And I'm gonna, I'll jump right in. Does my sound pretty good?
Very good.
Excellent. So I'm gonna, done quite a few of these Zoom meetings. And so I've kind of gotten Zoom and Skype meetings. So I've gotten pretty used to them now. So I'm gonna do a comparison of the, of our platforms, Democrat, Republican Party platform. And then I'm gonna kind of move into some of the things that I've been going through the last few weeks. And then we'll sort of compare that and talk about some of the things that's going on moving forward. There's a lot going on right now. I'm gonna jump right into these comparisons. And so I've got a list of the comparisons right here. It's pretty amazing how different the two-party platforms are. Obviously, the Republican Party certainly is the conservative party in the United States. And you know, we are really, you know, I believe holding to those foundational principles and just these platform comparisons. These are from platforms that were done at the 2016 convention, national convention, and so these are national party platforms. And certainly the state party platforms mirror these because they don't allow, for too much divergence from the national platform. So one thing that's in fact, this is an important point because this year, because of with the COVID-19 pandemic, and we had to change our convention. So our 2016 platform nationally will carry on and be our 2020 platform. And so we'll carry on until 2024 because we're not going to be able to have a rules committee or a platform committee for this convention. And so that's kind of some breaking news that not many people know. And so one big issue, so platform, a big issue, sanctity of human life. When we talk about the sanctity of human life, it's pretty, that's a stark contrast. And in fact, I believe that this contrast is one that brings a lot of minorities into the Republican Party. In fact, it was one of the issues that brought me into the Republican Party, and one of the issues that got me to say, wait a minute, I can't support a party that's for this. Quote out of the platform, it says, this is a Republican Party platform, it says, proud to be the party that protects human life and offer real solutions for women and strongly opposes infanticide. So that's a quote right out of the platform. And then when you go over to the Democrat Party platform, they actually call for government funding of abortion on demand through all 9 months of pregnancy. And say they want to repeal the Hyde Amendment and which bars federal money for elective abortion. And so their plan is to actually fund abortion all the way through 9 months of pregnancy. And so we call that infanticide. Certainly Republicans are for limiting abortion, and not allowing abortion to occur after 20 weeks for certainly. We're not for abortion at all, but we certainly want to make sure that we're not, killing a fully developed baby, which is what the Democrats are now for. They've been pressed towards that. When you look at redefining marriage, the American family is the foundation of civil society, and the cornerstone of the family is natural marriage, union between a man and a woman. That's the Republican Party platform. The Democrat Party platform seeks to redefine marriage and says, quote, we recognize the LGBT community, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people have the right to marry the person they love. And so they certainly want to expand that definition. Those are two things that certainly differentiate us. We talk about God in government. The Democrat Party in 2016, they actually took God out of their platform entirely. In fact, I don't know if you remember, but they had a big debate over this. And they talked about, whether God should even be allowed on their platform. They decided to take him out. Our platform, on the other hand, says that we have people have God-given natural inalienable rights that when they come in conflict with government or court, then we believe that God prevails. And so we have God-given natural inalienable rights will always prevail. And so we support the public display of the 10 Commandments. And as we know, that's been a big issue in the news lately, that the Democrat Party wants to take down the 10 Commandments. Many of them, people on the Democrat side have filed lawsuit to remove the 10 Commandments from public places, remove them from our courthouses all over the United States. And so that is something that they seek to do and are seeking to do. You talk about the Supreme Court. Republicans support the appointment of judges who respect traditional family values and the sanctity of innocent human life, and who are not judicial activists, but who interpret the Constitution. And Democrats have vowed to support judges, support the president, appoint judges who will protect a woman's right to abortion, and support the progressive agenda of equality for all, which includes LGBT rights. And so there are stark differences in our platforms. These are actually outlines. I think we know these things intuitively, but if you look at the Democrat Party platform, it's a rather it's a rather aggressively radical document if you look at it and read it all the way through. On education, Republicans support school choice and local control of the school district. And so explaining that, many folks have described that as the civil rights issue of our time today, that Republicans want to be able to allow kids who are in poor school districts who don't have the tax base to support a strong school system, that they should be able to take the money that would normally be spent for their kids to go to any school that they want, a private school or a charter school or another public school if they wish. Democrats have actually fought against that, which is ironic that African American Democrats would fight against that, as they're beholden to the teachers' unions. Democrats, therefore, are silent on school choice. They don't bring it up because a lot of African Americans actually support that. And they simply say, we believe in a strong public education system as the anchor of our democracy for all children. And what I would say to that is, who doesn't believe that? Of course, everyone believes that. But unfortunately, the reality is a lot of our kids, especially minority kids, do not have that opportunity because they are stuck in schools that are failing and they're not allowed to go to any other schools. Talk about social experiments in the military. Obviously Republicans believe that, we reject the use of the military as a platform for social experimentation, will not accept any continuous attempts to undermine military priorities and mission readiness. And certainly the Democrats have pushed for repealing the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They've been in favor of that for a long time, and it actually was repealed. They say, quote, "Our military is stronger when it includes people of all sexual orientation and gender identities." And so they believe that we should allow everyone in, irrespective of military readiness and preparedness. And so we should allow, homosexuals in, despite the possible problems that can cause. Transgenders should be allowed. I guess they would be allowed to choose the military service, female, or to house with the females or the males if they wish. And so, so that's a big difference as well. Talk about terrorism and fighting terrorism. Of course, the Democrats take a different view on that as well. I quote in our platform, the Republicans say that radical Islamic terrorism poses an existential threat to our personal freedom and peace around the world, and we oppose its brutal assault on all human beings, all of whom have inherent dignity. And the Democrats says that they believe in fighting terrorism, and they believe that one of our big national security issues is climate change. And so they actually, in the terrorism section, they talk about climate change and how that has such a significant impact on terrorism. And so they don't even mention fighting terrorism. And so I think that there are significant differences in our party's platform. You talk about regulations and how Democrats support regulating businesses, regulating industries, and that regulation has just really choked off a lot of businesses in blue states. If you look at California, you look at New York, a lot of those businesses actually are moving to Texas and moving to red states where they can have more economic prosperity because they're free to do things without the regulatory burdens. And so that kind of brings me to a big topic that I've been really involved with here lately. And so I actually I had the opportunity to go. I was on Thursday night, this past Thursday, I actually went up to Dallas, and I was at a panel roundtable discussion with the president. And so he was sitting about 3 seats down from me, and we had African American leaders from around the United States who are doing fantastic things. I hope you all get to watch that. Look, it's called. It slips my mind right now, but it talks about transitioning to greatness was the name of the panel, and so you guys should look that up on YouTube because it was a powerful meeting. My wife and everyone I talked to said that they left the meeting just really uplifted. It was actually at Robert Morris's church up in the Dallas area. In Dallas, it was Gateway Church, And so it was a really powerful meeting, and it was very uplifting. But one thing I mentioned in that is I talked about my involvement with COVID-19 and at one of the nursing homes here, and how regulation has I think has cost lives in this pandemic. And so back on April the 2nd, we had all of our residents tested in our nursing home for COVID-19. And so what happened at that time was we found that we had 52 positive residents positive for COVID-19, and we had 31 positive staff members who were positive for COVID-19. And so immediately we lost 31 of our staff at this nursing facility. And we also, had 52 residents who were there. And so at the time, this was very early on, our examples that we had seen was in Washington State, where they lost 27 residents to COVID-19, just passed away. And obviously you've seen what's happened in Louisiana. Their nursing homes have been devastated. Even in nursing facilities here in Texas, we've had very large numbers who have passed away. And so that was our example. So our thought was to use, I also have a hospital-based practice, and what we did was we had used hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin in the hospital on patients who had been in the hospital, and saw that it had some effect, some positive effect. It really didn't harm anybody, but it seemed to be helpful in some, not helpful in all. But so we decided to shelter those patients in place at the nursing facility and treat them there. And to make a long story short, I mean, we saw them every day, visited them every day. We took EKGs to make sure they weren't having any of the cardiac side effects. And ultimately, we had a very good outcome. 35 of the 38 patients are still alive today. All of them except for one actually recovered from COVID-19 and the pulmonary side effects. And there were 2 that died later from other causes. And so we treated them for a 5-day course with hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. So after this happened, you would have thought that everyone would have been pleased with that, but everyone was not. It's been amazing. The President Trump in late March actually had mentioned that this medication could be a game changer. He had mentioned that it was something that he had seen it helped people in other states. And so because of that, it became a big political issue, and the media made it political. And it's just, since that time, it's just been an onslaught of attack. And what the media has done, and what the Democrats are doing, is they use the regulatory agencies to prevent the use of those medications that I think could save many lives. And I actually said this at the roundtable with President Trump. I mentioned that I believe that some of the communities that have been mostly devastated by COVID-19, in the Black community, could have benefited from this medication significantly. And so immediately when you say those things, I almost expect a negative study to come out the next day. And that's exactly what happened. This week they put out another negative story that said, and what it said was that African Americans are particularly susceptible to the negative effects of COVID-19, of hydroxychloroquine, negative effects to it, because they have a gene that makes them more susceptible to the negative, harmful effects of it. And I have taken hydroxychloroquine myself. I took it for 6 weeks when I went to Africa. I know many African Americans who have lupus, who are on hydroxychloroquine. They've been taking it for years. And so, it is amazing to me that the Democrats and the media have made this such a political issue. I think that they've made it so political that they've put pressure on the regulatory agencies, including the FDA, including the Texas medical boards, including other medical boards around the country, put pressure on them to not use these medications. In fact, if you saw recently Lancet, this big Lancet article came out. Lancet has been a very respectable journal, scientific journal, but they put out a study, a retrospective study, where they looked at about 100,000 patients and said that this medication killed people. They basically said hydroxychloroquine killed people, and so that was huge headlines for everybody. And so the FDA changed its stance on hydroxychloroquine, limited its usage. The World Health Organization took the medication out of a study that we're doing, took it out of the clinical trials because they say, oh no, it's killing people. And so that's how the world reacted to this. The country of France, where the medication hydroxychloroquine was being used first line, they actually shut off its usage immediately after that Lancet study come out. And so lo and behold, 2 weeks later, the authors of the Lancet study actually pull the study and say, oops, sorry, bad information. And so the entire world reacted to that study saying that hydroxychloroquine killed people. The whole world reacted to that. Now, it said that it killed people in hospitals, so it didn't really faze me in what we had done. My contention has been that you have to use it earlier for it to have a positive benefit. And so I don't think that it really helps people in the hospital as much. But that study changed how it was used. And I believe that the FDA and these medical boards are responsible for people losing their lives just because they have been so negative about this medication, only because the President of the United States was touting it. And so I think that really shows me, and I can give you some examples of how I had an African-American state senator that was going to try and make hay of this because he was going to try and, this thing has gone all over the place. I mean, I've been in the local news media here quite a bit. I've been featured on a lot of different news stories in Rolling Stone magazine, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today. All these news publications have picked it up. And so people saw that. And so this state senator was going to try and boost his political career by trying to sort of, quote, bring me down. It was what he was trying to do. And so he was talking about how people were calling him and complaining about it. And so what he assumed was that he was going to be helping a lot of African Americans out. He assumed that the nursing home was all African American, but his assumption was wrong. He actually, I've only treated very few. There's very few African Americans in this nursing facility, and so it offended me personally that he was trying to make hay out of this and trying to use it for his political advantage rather than trying to help his community, which is currently being devastated by COVID-19. And that's probably the only thing that's really made me mad in this whole thing is that rather than trying to help his community, and I thought he was calling me to say, Dr. Armstrong, how can we work together to try to limit the impact that it's having in my community right now? And rather than that, he was actually trying to call me and so he could maybe go and do a big press conference and say how, we were taking advantage of these elderly people at this nursing facility when all we were doing was treating them. And we had a positive outcome as well. And so I said all that to say, I believe that the Democrat Party in this election cycle, I believe that they will use any means necessary to defeat President Trump. I believe that they have evil intent. I believe that they think that Republicans are evil. They think that this president is evil. And I believe that they are going to do anything that they can to steal this election any way that they can. They always talk about how, President Trump, if he loses, the military is going to have to escort him out of the White House. Well, number one, he's not going to lose. And number two, if he does, he has a lot of things to keep him busy. I'm sure he'd probably be happier if he were not president, frankly, because he has a lot of things to keep him busy that he loves. But I'll tell you, this Democrat Party is there undermining us in every way that they can. For them to take a physician who's practicing medicine, who happens to be Republican, have a Republican affiliation, and an advisor to the Trump campaign, who happens to do those things, for them to take that and try to make a political opportunity out of it, I think is just horrible. I mean, they're making everything political, and I think it's just shameful what they've done. I think they've cost lives by their media coverage. I think they've cost lives by how they're doing this. How ironic is it that we have shelter-in-place orders for churches, and we have shelter-in-place orders for political conventions. We have shelter-in-place orders for all these different essential activities, but we don't have them for stores. We don't have them for grocery stores. We don't have them for other essential activities. We don't have them for 60,000 people in the city of Houston rioting. There's not the stay-at-home orders completely went away when people started rioting. In fact, there were a group of scientists that put out a letter that said, the racial injustice situation is so important that you're free to riot now. And so somehow, COVID-19 completely went away when the riots started. And just today, we heard that our mayor in the city of Houston, who is a big Democrat, has just canceled the 4th of July celebration because of COVID-19, because the numbers are increasing. So last week, he participated in a rally where 60,000 people walked the streets of Houston without social distancing, many of them without masks. And this week, he cancels the 4th of July celebration. And so I think that just about tells you where the Democrat Party is going with all of this. They don't care the hypocrisy and how that looks. All they are doing is they're simply wanting to defeat this president. I believe that now they're talking about defunding the police departments. What can you say? The people that want to defund the police departments, are the people who have the least to lose. It's actually minority communities that are going to suffer the most from defunding the police department. And most people understand that and know that. My contention is that I don't believe liberals really want to defund the police department. I believe what they want to do is defund the current police department, and they want to have their own paramilitary police department that enforces their own values and their own ideas. And there's a great example of that in the 1940s with Adolf Hitler and the brown shirts. And so I really believe that these folks they have horrible intentions, and they really are not seeking. They're not seeking unity. They're not seeking racial justice. They're not seeking justice for George Floyd. They're really not seeking justice at all. What they're seeking is power, and they're seeking political power. And I believe that their goal is to have political power by any means necessary. And they're wrapping it in a very moral cause of racial justice and racial equality. And they're wrapping it in that cause, but they're really seeking political power. And so I believe as a party, we need to be very well aware of that, be well aware that the Democrats' intentions are simply to gain power, and that is it. That is their goal. And they will do that by any means necessary. If they have to shame people, publicly humiliate people, talk negatively about people, take away their lifestyle, take away their ability to raise and provide for their families. I mean, it's really, really amazing what I've seen over the last few weeks. And so it's so important for us to get out and vote and engage like never before, because this president certainly challenges them, and he doesn't let them get away with some of the things that many Republican presidents have allowed them to get away with. He's a fighter. And so he's going to actually have a rally this Saturday in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so something you probably don't know either is that 1 million people have registered and gone online to try to attend that rally. 1 million, that is a record by far. And so the interest in this, that's just today. The rally is on Saturday. I suspect by Saturday evening when this rally takes place, we're probably going to have close to 5 million people who are trying to come to this rally. It will be by far the biggest rally he's ever had, with the most people outside. They're going to have events outside for people because clearly everyone can't get in. And so I will tell you, the excitement about this president is just at another level. I believe that people see the hypocrisy of the Democrats. They see the hypocrisy of the liberals. They see the hypocrisy of the news media, and people are just waiting to come out in force in November. But we have to work to make that happen. In Texas, we've got a big fight on our hands. We need to make sure that we increase our numbers in the state house. So we've got to support our state house candidates. We've got to make sure we grow those numbers because redistricting is coming up in 2021. The legislative session's in 2021, and we're going to have a big redistricting session. So we're going to have to make sure that we're the ones writing those districts for the next 10 years. And so it is vital that we are engaged like never before. You know, get your family members, register them to vote if they're not registered. We need to register new Republicans to vote. I mean, we need to make sure that we are pounding the pavement in every way because the Democrats certainly are coming after us. You know, they have a horrible candidate in Joe Biden. You know, I am of the impression that he may not, you know, he may not end up being the candidate on the ballot. I know that he's won the nomination already, but he just doesn't have it together. I'll leave it at that. And so I believe that they're going to do everything they can to try and replace him on the ballot. And so we're going to have to be prepared and ready to fight. RNC convention, we have a RPT convention, Republican Party of Texas, coming up in July as well, July the 14th through the 16th. It's the largest convention in the world. Fortunately, our Attorney General has said that state conventions are essential. So there's no shenanigans that the mayor or the county judge here can do because it is in Houston this year. We have a national convention that's actually going to be in North Carolina, but it's actually been changed. We're going to do our business in North Carolina, and then we're going to go and celebrate and nominate the president in Jacksonville, Florida. So that convention's been moved because the Democrat governor is playing shenanigans in North Carolina and didn't allow us to go and do the build out that we needed to do. So there are a lot of things going on right now, and so I could probably talk for an hour. I may have gone on too long already, and so I could go on for a long time. There's a lot going on. So thank you so much for having me here. I hope that I've sort of impressed upon you the importance of getting out to vote and getting engaged and working hard to elect Republicans this November. You know, you always hear that it's the most important election of our lifetime, but I really believe that this one is because, you know, the Democrats are doing everything they can to upend all of our value systems. So let's get out and fight the good fight and save our country. Thank you. God bless.
Dr. Armstrong, thank you very, very much for your commentary. We really appreciate your taking time out of your schedule to spend with us today. I believe that Joan Van Fleet has got a few questions that are related to ask you. So Joan, if you'd be kind enough to go ahead and address those questions to Dr. Armstrong, please.
Dr. Armstrong, you really had some very powerful things to say, but I will pose a few questions to you.
Sure.
You talked so much about the difference between the two parties, but what Democrat disadvantages should we as Republicans try to exploit when, you know, to try to at least influence the people who haven't made up their mind or are willing to listen? What are the disadvantages, the weaknesses we can exploit?
Well, I'll tell you, so one big weakness I think now, and it's a weakness that just came up recently, is I think all American people, you know, independents included, I mean, you're certainly not going to convince any Democrats to vote Republican, certainly not for President Trump, but all people, you know, no one wants rioting and looting. Everyone sees that for what it is. There certainly is sympathy. You know, everyone was disgusted at what they saw on the video with George Floyd and the police officer, but most people inherently know that that is not most of the police forces around this country. And in fact, that is a very, very minute minority, very, very small. And so I think that people want to they understand rioting and looting. I think the law and order message, and you've seen the president talk about this a lot, is significant. is significant. I believe that could make inroads in cities that we have lost with that message of saying, listen, you have people that have literally, they've burned police force buildings, they've burned precinct buildings of the police. That's something you can highlight. That's something that no one thinks is right. They have surrounded and taken over police forces. In Seattle right now, they basically ran the policemen out of that precinct building, and they've basically taken it over. And so, people do not want that in their cities. And I think that's a huge advantage that we have now because independents want law and order. And it's been shown that certainly with a lot of suburban women and suburbanites, that's an issue that really resonates with them. One big issue as well is healthcare. It's an issue that always comes up. It is actually the reason why we lost the House in 2018, is because Republicans didn't do anything about the healthcare issue when we had control of the House and the Senate and the presidency. And so healthcare is a huge, huge issue that we need to get a message on and say, listen, we have a plan that is going to help, because what happened was we lost suburban women on the healthcare issue. And if y'all know as well as I do that the women basically manage the healthcare of the home. Certainly my wife does. She's always telling me I need to go to the doctor. She's arranging the kids' appointments, and and she's arranging her own appointments. And so generally that's true. And so women are really concerned about healthcare. So I think that's an issue that's important that we need to get a strong message on as well. So have every candidate tell them that they need to develop a message on healthcare, and they need to develop a message on law and order and keeping peace in our society.
One question about the health care. You always hear the word Medicare. Of course, it means a lot to the people at Heritage Ranch because most of us have Medicare.
Sure.
But it always surprises me because Medicare under Biden would probably not be recognizable. I mean, what would the type of Medicare be that the Democrats are proposing? It simply means medical, I suppose, an advantage to see a doctor, but would it have any likeness to what Medicare really is?
Well, certainly they would change it significantly. So what the Democrats are pushing now, and Bernie Sanders talked about Medicare for all, and what that does is that's just socialized medicine is what it is. If you do that for everyone, there's a lot of folks. Medicare now, it would not look the same at all. It would offer certainly less services. It would certainly offer, you have longer wait times. I mean, it would lessen access to a physician as well. And so I think that as the government, Medicare actually has been a very successful program. It really has been a successful program for our seniors. You expand that to include another, 100 million people, and then you gut the program. I mean, you really do. And so I believe that what will happen ultimately is you would have to start rationing care. I mean, because you would simply not have the money to be able to do that. And so you'd have to ration care. And you look at what's happening in Europe now. In Europe, if you're over 65, then you're not getting dialyzed at all. And you have to, if you have a hip fracture, you may have to wait many months before you get that fixed. And so it's gonna lessen access. It's gonna lessen quality as well. You're gonna have folks who are from other places taking care of you, other countries taking care of you. I mean, that's going to increase more and more. I mean, that's the case today, but it certainly will increase. And I believe that Medicare and healthcare in general certainly will be upended by any Biden administration. It certainly would, because that's the plan that they're pushing.
Thank you. Well, here's another one. What initiatives will we see from the RNC, the Texas GOP, and the Trump campaign to promote Republican success in November? And how can our club members get involved and assist in these initiatives?
Well, I think that I'll tell you. So what the RPT has been doing, Republican Party of Texas has been doing, is been on an aggressive voter registration program. It's called 10K for 10R, and so they're trying to register new Republican voters. We've had such an influx of Californians and New Yorkers and people from all over the country moving to Texas because of our economic climate. And what our data shows is that a lot of those folks are right-leaning Republicans. And so we have to get them registered to vote for the fall. And so that's one big thing that we're doing. Folks in communities like here Ranch, I mean, you want to make sure everybody in your community is registered, because you folks are likely going to be more conservative and more Republican leaning. And so that's one thing I think is important. The RNC certainly is working very closely with the president and raising money. I mean, we have raised an extraordinary amount of money in the RNC. The DNC is pretty much bankrupt right now. They'll have the money that they need, but they'll get it from George Soros and all these other billionaires. But we've raised a lot of money. We've got a pretty strong infrastructure in place to really engage and outreach people. And so one thing that RNC and RPT has been doing is actually engaging a lot of African American voters. I'm actually on the advisory board for the Black Voices for Trump. And I suspect that we're going to see a lot of African Americans this election cycle actually vote for President Trump, and that's going to surprise a lot of people. You know, his approval rating has been as high as 30 to 35% in the African American community, despite what you see on the news, despite what you see, what the news media shows you. And so people see that on the ground, he's actually doing a lot for all communities in this country, not just African Americans. And so people see that. And so the president's going to be able to do a lot. I mean, he's a great campaigner. I think these rallies have a significant impact because it just generates excitement. If you have, 1 million people that are signing up to go to your rally, what's happening with that is that's 1 million email addresses we have. That's 1 million new addresses, physical addresses that we have. Those are phone numbers that we have. And so that's going to help us to engage people. What was interesting is that at these rallies, we did the numbers, and you could actually crunch the numbers because you have to register for these rallies. And so you have to give lots of information so that we have that information to engage you later. And so what we found, we've bumped that information up against our voter file. And what we found is that upwards of 30% of the people coming to these rallies are actually Democrats, up to 30%. We saw 25% are people that have actually never voted before. And so they haven't voted in either primary. And so, or a general election. And so what's happening is in these rallies, what we're seeing is greater than 50% of the people are either Democrat voters or have never voted before. And so that's what our data is showing us that's attending these rallies. And so that is extremely encouraging. So what we'll do is that information will filter down to the RPT, and then we'll contact those voters again, because our goal has to be, now these are Trump voters, these are not necessarily Republican voters. And so our goal has to be to engage these folks to make them Republican voters, not just Trump voters. And so if we do that, then it benefits our entire ballot. Also understand that in 2020, this year, we're not going to have straight ticket voting any longer as well. So we have to make sure that we make our folks aware of that they have to go all the way down the ballot and vote Republican all the way down, and they have to kind of click every button there, and you just don't have a one button to click for straight ticket. And so that's something that's really important.
Well, one question about battleground. Now, some people, I know the Democrats and Joe Biden, seem to consider Texas being a battleground state. Do you consider it a battleground state? And what is the RNC doing, if that's so, to support Texas Republican candidates and make sure that we don't have a battleground state?
So what the RNC has done is RNC has actually been giving, actually funding quite a bit in Texas. We've been giving, we get checks from the RNC actually every month, and that has been to keep some of these offices open. So we've got about 7 or 8 offices now across the state of Texas. You know, we have a lot of field staff that are working out of these offices. And so this is something that we've really never had before. And it's in large part because of our chairman, Dickey's been raising a lot of money. And then also the RNC's been funding a lot of these offices as well. And so that's one important thing. I would always consider Texas a battleground state, you know, not because we are a purple state, but because we are such an important state. Mm-hmm. And the RNC actually recognizes that. You know, we have 38 electoral votes here in Texas. And boy, if we are the largest red state here, largest red state in the country. And so if we lose Texas, then you know, we'll never win a presidency again. The Republicans will never win a presidency. And so the RNC actually recognizes that and understands that Texas is a majority minority state today. And so they realize that we have to keep working hard and engaging Texans because you know, we just have to make sure that we do that, that we're making sure we're winning people over and making sure that we're winning people towards our value system. And so that's important because we have so many people moving into the state of Texas as well from out of state. And so for those reasons, I think Texas will always be a battleground state. I don't think that the election is going to be close. I don't think that we're at risk of losing Texas, but I certainly think that because our cities have flipped so Democrat, you know, speaking of San Antonio and Houston and Dallas, you know, and Austin, those cities have flipped so Democrat that's a significant part of our vote in the state. And so we need to certainly start working our cities a little harder and start bringing, you know, doing more engagement in our cities, because you just look at what the Democrats are doing in cities all across the country. They're just destroying our American cities, and they're in control of all the cities. You know, you look at all the unrest and you look at all of the stuff that's going on. You know, it's all cities that have been controlled by Democrats for decades. And so it's just not happening in Republican cities. And so that's another point that we need to make as well, is that we just offer a different style of leadership that's been successful. The Democrats have offered a style of leadership that has failed. They're failing their own constituency in many ways.
Well, you certainly have brought out some very important observations, and I thank you very much for taking this time. I think Ted Puches wants to say just some final words, but thank you.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And we'll see you in Houston.
Yes, absolutely.
Two of us or a group of us are coming.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Dr. Armstrong, I'd like to personally thank you on behalf of the membership of the Republican Club at Heritage Ranch for taking time from your busy schedule, as I know that they've got you running around everywhere. You've given us a very, very deep insight into the psyche of the party, as well as being able to give us some talking points, to be able to try to convert some of the independent thinkers, all right, that we have in Texas, be able to keep Texas blue. As I had mentioned to our membership, we will continue to have both physical and virtual meetings for the remainder of the year. I encourage them to stay tuned to our newsletter, email, and our website for communications, dates. In addition, please see our website for the information about the upcoming Cullen County GOP 9/11 golf tournament at Heritage Ranch, which is in conjunction with the Veterans Organization Once in a Lifetime. We highly encourage our membership participation, since we will be the host golf course. And then I'd like to thank everyone for their assistance in being able to put this together. And look forward to seeing you, Dr. Armstrong, in Houston. And look forward to seeing you at our victory rally in November.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you all very much.
Well.
2020 victory. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you very much.
Bob?